Good morning. It's time for coffee talk. Let's talk some tanks with an airplane guy. All right. All right. I am Guido, and as always, we're going to go through a few things right here. We'll start off with talking some missions, some of the bonuses and things that you can get out there today. The graphics update. We'll do a little quick demo what my machine does with that. The Soviet changes. We'll talk about those. We won't deep dive too much because they're changing as we speak, but some interesting developments there. A quick year in review for the channel. And then at the end, we're going to go slightly negative. We're going to talk a little bit about why I stopped playing this morning. I played 3 games, stopped, and decided to do this video. Instead of doing it Sunday, I'll do it today. And there are some reasons for that, so we will talk about that. Let's get on with it. I hope you had a good Christmas. I hope you're ready for the new year. Have a good party, or maybe just a relaxing night with the significant others and whatnot, and get ready for the new year. Let's get started. For the specials and things for this weekend, what we've got going on, remember there's a 15% credit discount on standard Tier 8 to Tier 10 vehicles. That is a pretty good deal because they're expensive in credits. There are some good discounts in the holiday ops. You've probably used a lot of those. But if you've used those up and you have extra credits, because the holiday ops have some really good credit making capabilities, you may be in the market for another Tier 8, 9, or 10. So grab them up while you can. This goes to the 2nd of January. 15% gold discount on Tier 8 tanks, premium Tier 8 tanks, which I grabbed a couple. I'll talk about that when we get into the holiday ops discussion. There's a conversion discount, free XP to crew XP, all right, to crew XP. So if you got some crews that you want to upgrade, you can do that. And I never do that. I just don't think that's a great deal, but there you go. 15% gold discount on 6 to 12 month premium accounts. A little bit controversy there. Last year there was a 50% discount, at least for the year, and I don't know for the 6 month. This year only 15%, but if you're planning on being a premium guy for the next year, then that's about the best deal you're going to get, to be quite honest, because clearly they're not going to put a 15% out and then switch it over and give you a 50% towards the end. If they did, well, okay, this is wargaming, so potentially, but I doubt it. I suppose it's possible. All right, let's jump down here, and we will jump into the missions tab, so we can go to the missions tab. First, the events tab. In the missions tab, you can see that the Panzer VII is the on track. As I always say, that is a good thing to do. If you're planning on grinding up that line anyway, then clearly take advantage of all this, or maybe plan your grinds around these things as you find them out. I've already got that one done. A small note, if you do have it done, remember that if you go ahead and grind through all this anyway, it's quite a grind. You can end up with a free garage slot and a couple of credit boosters at the end. Those are not amazing rewards for doing 250,000, I believe it is, experience, but if it's a tank line you liked anyway, or maybe you're trying to 3-mark one of the tanks in the line, just something to think about. If you get close, you might as well just grind it out and get those freebies. Enough of that mess. In the missions tab, under the missions tab, I was right in that I think every Friday they have switched out a new set of missions so you can get more baubles for your holiday ops and smash them into shards and attempt to get all the collections. So this has been interesting to me. We'll talk about this a little bit when we talk about holiday ops, a little update a little bit later, but how this has gone down is kind of interesting, and I kind of came to a realization on something, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But you can see that I haven't played a whole lot, I mean a little bit since Friday, and I've knocked out quite a few of these things, so these are really pretty easy, and even a casual player playing an entire week, maybe 6-7 games a day or something like that, is probably going to get most of these done, if not a good number of them. But if you obviously you got to be kind of a grinder if you're going to make sure that you get all of them. I tend to get them done in the first 3 days or 4 days or so of playing. Down here, the tank mastery thing is still going on. Also realized, well, there's 2 at the same time. I haven't paid too much attention to those lately. They just give you that little Actually, that's not true. Some of them give you other stuff like this. So credit boosters and crew boosters and experience boosters. So that's all good stuff. And you get that little mastery. At least I thought you did. Maybe you don't anymore. I think you get a little inscription for your mastery thing. Okay, and down here, this is the little New Year's missions for just this weekend. One of them is being the top 10 by experience, and you get 1 day of premium. Okay, but these two are pretty good right here. New Year's Eve Part 3 and 4, the top 10 by, I think this is experience. Yep, that's experience and also experience. So this is basically the same two things right here, but quite a few goodies if you look at this list of stuff. All of this food, and then over here you get all these other consumables, which is a nice deal, and that'll just happen while you play. But pay attention to that. You might be close. You might say, oh, I need another game or two to knock those out and get the rest of those. So that is pretty much it for the missions. It is just more of the same, basically, for the holiday ops. So let's dive into the holiday ops here just a moment. All right, then, holiday ops. We'll jump into the tree here, and you can see where I am. I'm at Festive Atmosphere 10. I've been that way for a while. Let's jump into the collections, which means I have a level 5 ornament of some kind, doesn't matter, in each one of the slots in the tree, the yard, the snowman, and the house. So that's all done. But the collections now are the next thing, because actually let's dive back here real quick just to refresh everyone's memory. On the list of rewards, that's where it is. You can see that I have done all of these except for pick my tier 2 and 3 discount tank at 100%. The rest of these I've done, and what I did here, you can see that actually that shows the tank that I used it on. Because I was grinding the new AMX line in the French, I used it on the tier 8, 9, and 10. I am on the tier 9, which you would have seen at the beginning of the video, so I picked that up. I was able to free experience through all the modules on the 8, and as I ground through the 8, I got just enough to do the same thing on the 9, so I didn't have to deal with any less than optimal modules, any of those. I talked about this earlier. I used the crew on the FV215B just to fill out that crew with 4 of the female brother-in-arms types, and then this one, I had a weird situation in Sweden. I think there was 5 Swedish crew that were available, and they've got a kind of weird crew setup in their tanks. Some of them have 3. I think most of the top tier ones have 3 because they're running autoloaders and such. And I think the Sturves are 3 crew. But anyway, I was short 1 to make a full crew, so that's where I put this last one in there. Somebody did a list of them. I think there are 36 total of the female brother-in-arms crew available. And I want to say I have 35, or no, 34, because I think 2 of them were for the riggers in the T-22. You could get crew along with the rest of the, getting the T-22. There was 2 crew members available in that whole fiasco. So I've done all that. We'll get down to the collections then, and we look at this. And here's what I was discussing earlier, where we'll talk about it, and the realization that I kind of came to. I think that this was basically designed for a casual player to fairly easily get one of the special camos of the collections, and maybe 2 depending on how lucky they got. And I say this casual player because I'm talking about somebody who's not going to buy a bunch of boxes. Now, I've bought a bunch of boxes, and unfortunately what I probably should have done, we'll get to the boxes in a minute, but I bought boxes, so that doesn't matter why right now, which has brought me to a pretty high level on all these things. You see I'm at the 48%. Let's look at the top here. I've got 56 of 63 on that one, 56 of 64 there, 56 of 63 there, and 59 of 61 on the Chinese New Year. In fact, I'm very close on the Chinese New Year collection to getting the camo on that. So that's pretty close, but I've used a lot of boxes, and I have shattered a bunch of shards. We'll go down to the crafting thing. This has been interesting because, you know, I can get to the point of needing a certain item. Let's dive back over here. And I have tried to create it, and I've got to the point where I've made 4 or 5 or 6 of the exact same ornament that I don't need in a row, and that eats up a lot of shards. The tier 1, 2, 3, and 4 shards are fairly cheap, as I've showed before. Once you try to get to hitting the level 5 ones, they're pretty expensive in shards, 1,440 I think. So you don't have a lot of tries on those before you're out of shards, and you've got to wait for the new mission set to come in. So this is why I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of thinking that the idea behind this with Wargaming was you could pretty easily, casually get one, maybe two of these, but it's going to be a grind, or you're going to have to spend some money to get all four. And I've spent a decent amount of money on boxes, which I said we'd get to in a minute, so we'll talk about that right now. And that has helped me out because all those tier 5 ornaments past where I didn't need them anymore on my decorations, I was able to break apart, and that gives you quite a few shards. So you're getting with each box you're getting a tier 5 and another random one, so that's quite a few shards when you get to it. So it's a little bit cynical on their part. I guess, as I've said before, I'm not that bothered by it. Making money is part of what they're trying to do, but it gets to the point where being a little bit honest about it would be better for me, and that just isn't a part of their corporate culture. Honesty does not really seem to be there. Now, you don't want to walk out and go, hey, look, we're making this kind of pay-to-win shard thing. But you could come out and you could say something to the effect of, look, we have built this so the casual player should pretty easily be able to get one, maybe two of these camos. And you could leave the rest of the whole idea of what the rest of you're going to have to pay. We can fill in the blanks from there. But they just come out like, hey, you can get all four. Ooh, it's all such a great deal, It just drives me a little bit crazy on that. And we'll touch on that a little bit later as well, as we get through a couple of their videos and the things that they are doing and their kind of lack of honesty overall, which is a bit bothersome. But that's my update right there. I may try to get these. Let me backtrack slightly, because when I talked about how you could get the same ornament kind of over and over, when you get to the point of you're trying to craft these things, there are a couple ornaments, a couple spots where it's only one slot. So if you need that, and let me see if I can find one. I've probably already done all of them. It's not that one. No, it's not. So it's not presents. You can see that most of the collections have multiple presents, and it's not the ornaments. You can see that this guy's, there's four ornaments. But for example, the snowmen in each collection, there's only one. So when you craft that, you get it, right? There's no possibility of getting the wrong one, unless you actually try to craft one you already have, which you hopefully aren't doing. The colored lights, there's only one. The house, there's only one. And the candles, torches, there's only one. Also the tree topper, there's only one. So all of those that are only one, when you start crafting, go ahead and fill those in first so that you're not wasting potentially any shards. And then you got to start fighting with the garlands are 2, and it's weird because some of the collections are a little bit different. Topper I already talked about is 1. The presents are typically 3, or well, in this case it's 2, and the ornaments are 3 usually, and this one happens to be 4. So it's weird because it changes around depending on which collection it is. So all right, that is that for the Holiday Ops update. Nothing else really to add on that. I'm just going to keep on trucking for I guess there's one more thing to add. Ultimately, my plan is to continue to collect shards. I will build any of those ornaments that are one-offs, that only have one possibility, which I think I've already done all of those. And then I'm going to save shards towards the end, so that if I get down to the nitty-gritty where I've got to pull the ornaments off of my stuff here at the end, last day, I'll do that, break them, and hopefully get through and get all four of the camos. And this is where it's going to get interesting, because I'm wondering on that last day or two how many boxes they're going to sell as people realize that they don't have enough shards. If we get to that point, and I think we might, you could get lucky, and that's where the RNG thing comes in, right? Where you're building the ornaments. Some people just get lucky and they get the one they want. If you get 5 or 6 of the same one in a row, like I have been tending to do, that's exaggeration, but I am very often getting 2 to 3, and I have seen 5 to 6 of the same ornament in a row. Before you get the one you need, you're going to run out of shards. All right, well, that's the update on that. All right, so here's an example of the Encore doing its thing. And I can't change the music level, unfortunately, or anything on it. You can see how the water works. Makes the tank wet. Shadowing. Obviously, all the little details are more detailed. This is Abby, apparently. So watch as he gets up into the city here. A lot more details. Breaking stuff. screaming through here. Pretty cool, actually. Trees are more interesting. Here comes a little tank. Big explosions. Alright, so let's talk about this. Alright, so that was some of the Encore play right there, at least showing you the new graphics. So this brings me to the other part of where they're kind of talking out both sides of their face and the honesty of the company, which irritates the living crap out of me. So they have a video out, which I showed you last week, and they're talking about the upgrade to the graphics, which is great. Upgrade to graphics, that's fine by me. And they say on the one hand, hey, it's not going to affect your ability to play the game, or it's not going to affect the quality of your game. And on the other hand, they give out this Encore thing and say, hey, play this and see if your system can handle it. So mine got a really high score. I want to say it's a brand new system, 1080 Ti, 8700 i8, whatever the heck it is. Anyway, it's plenty, and I got a score like 36,000, which is going to be fine. I'm going to be able to play it. But you come out and you say, hey, this graphics update really isn't going to affect your computer or its ability to play, and then they give you the Encore thing and say, figure out if your computer is going to do this well. Well, the honest answer, if they were actually honest, they'd come out and go, look, we're upgrading the graphics. Naturally, that's going to require some more computing power out of your computer if you want to continue to run at the higher settings. But that's not what they say, right? They just kind of talk out both sides of their mouth. I don't understand why they do that. Why not just say what the real deal is? Anyone who has any clue about computers or graphics or how it works understands that if you increase the graphical capability of your game, you can optimize, you can do a lot of things, but ultimately, more than likely, probably 99.9% of the time, you're going to need more computing power to handle the better graphics. That's how it works. It's science. But why they don't just say that, I don't understand. I really don't. It's just kind of, I got a secret, sort of evasive kind of thing where, and I think what they really mean, which they're not saying, is, yeah, you'll still be able to play. You can knock down the graphic capability of our new engine or our new graphics, and you'll still be playing. You just won't be playing with the new ultra high graphic stuff. And that's what everyone understands, but they never really say that. They just sort of say, you'll be able to play the same as you're doing now, no problem. And that's just bullshit. That's crazy. It's just crazy to me. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. Also, I'm going to do some map videos or map analysis, that kind of thing, when the new stuff comes out, because more than likely the maps are going to change the meta a little bit. They do say in their videos that they're trying to keep the gameplay on the maps the same, but you are as aware as I am of their ability to kind of manage and design maps and how long they've left maps. So very specific metas have grown up around maps, and I think the new HD stuff is going to change some of that. I don't think it's going to be massive changes because they really didn't look at gameplay on their maps, unfortunately. They seem to have only paid attention to the prettiness. But anyway, when those come out, we'll go ahead and do some of those map videos. All right, let's do a slight retraction, because as I was digging through looking for the next section, I actually noticed this note, and it sort of actually kind of says what I was just talking about. So good on them. It says if you're playing on normal settings, you might have to switch to lower minimal with the new graphics engine. It won't affect the frame rate or picture quality. Okay, though they'll stay the same or even improve. Man, that's pretty gutsy declaration right there. I don't believe that, to be quite honest. You may be able to lower down to lower minimal and get close to the same frame rate or picture quality that you had. That remains to be seen. So obviously I can't make that call because everyone's system's different. We'll see what happens. But that doesn't really say it, does it? I mean, it sort of alludes to it. All of the big advertisements, though, are yapping about how it's not going to hurt you at all. And then they got this little note, oh, by the way, you might have to lower it. But slight retraction for me, fine. They said it, good on them. All right, let's dive into the Soviet changes real quick here. You can see that their TD line is moving around a bit with the 263. So the 122.54 gets removed. Whether we get to keep it or not, I am not certain. If it's under the same concept as it has been, then we would keep it as a special vehicle. They're going to move the Su-101 M1 and Su-101 back to 7 and Tier 8. They're going to bring the 263 down to Tier 9, and they're going to put a 268 variant 2, which I'm assuming is this guy right here, although I'm not sure. It doesn't really say whether that's it. Maybe that's one of the heavy tanks coming up. I'm not sure. Probably not a TD because it's got a turret. So it's going to be kind of one of those setback guns. And this was interesting to me. The way they the way they word stuff drives me crazy. This famed TD, it's famed, so we're going to remove it. With its traditional turret placement, which means a forward casemate instead of a rear casemate, felt like an upsetting step away from the line's underlying concept. I don't even know what they're talking about. What exactly what does that mean? Not to mention it's brittle armor and low HP pool, which you could actually just fix and balance it, but no, it needs to be removed. Prevented it from fighting on par with its tier 9 peers. Actually, fellas, it was OP in its first iteration, and you nerfed it. So this is all BS. It's just completely out someone's arse. It really is. It's this whole idea that we're going to make all these lines fight the same, so we're just going to change them all around. Well, why not just add some more tanks into the line? Make the 155, whatever it is, 122-54, an offshoot from the tier 9. So you can actually just go over to it instead of removing it. This idea that you're going to remove content because it doesn't fit your idea of how the line should go is moronic. I mean, that's just the developers having their own little world about how they want things to be, with no concept or idea that there's actually players out there playing the game. It's ignoring players and just doing whatever self-indulgent bullshit you want to do. It really is. It's stupid. You could do this by doing a little split at the tier 9 and leave the 122-54 in there, and that's content. People can get to the tier 9 and go, hey, I'll go here, or I'll go here. Or potentially make a mini line off the 122-54, but you're just going to shit can it. Make it a special vehicle that only a few people have. I don't get it. It's moronic. All right. Medium tanks, they're going to switch those around. Kind of the same idea with the rear turreted line. So the one that goes through the 430, I believe it is, the 430 version 2. The 416 is going to stay at 8, followed by the 430 version 2, and then a new tier 10 with a rear-mounted turret. And that's fine. And the 430 is being moved. Assault MTs down the line. T-44, 54, 62A, Object 140 remain unchanged. Now this was interesting right here for me, and it's important to what I'm discussing here as well, because all this could change. This is all pretty far down the line, but it's not final setup, but rather iterative changes that will continue to be made based on your feedback. All right, so if you're knowledgeable or into the process of development, especially software, or really anything at this point, this idea of iterative changes is a kind of modern term, and it's nice to hear them saying that. I don't think I've ever heard them say anything like that. It goes right back to what I was just talking about earlier, though, where their developers seem to be in these little self-indulgent bullshit world where what they intend and what they want is what's most important for the game, vice paying attention. If you're doing iterative design, an iterative design process, you're paying attention to how each step is working, and you're reacting to whether it was good or bad, so that if you do something stupid or something's not working out, then you change it. Each iteration is supposed to get a little bit better. You don't just bulldoze your way to the end that you decided at the beginning, hey, my goal is this, let's bulldoze through, and any shitty things about it we'll fix later. Iterative is I fix it as I go and I pay attention to what's going on. So that at least is a nice thing to hear from these guys. Last thing is heavy tanks, and we have another situation again. They really got this whole rear-mounted turret thing. They're fascinated by it, but it's going to be new tanks: the IS-2 SH, the Object 705, and the Object 705A. They said initially it was going to be off the KB13 branch. I think there was just some news that's going to come off the IS branch. So anyway, iterative changes, like I said, and it's just early information, so keep an eye on it. The reason I bring all this up is you may want to start thinking about, and I'll keep up to date on it with you, but paying attention to, especially when they're removing tanks, to make sure that you might be able to grind to it and get that tank before they take it out, if they're going to leave it as a special tank in the game. Obviously, if they're just going to take it out and remove it from the game, you might not want to grind to it, but you may want to, because if it's a swap out, you may want that tank, the new tank as well. But a lot of things in there to think about. All right, let's move on. Well, guys, it's been a great year, so thanks for coming by. I really didn't get serious about this thing until probably the turn of last year. So you can see that I started off a bit earlier than that in 2016 and kind of started adding people as I went. But I had a pretty good boost here at the beginning of the year and then fairly steady increase from there. It was interesting to me, 352 subscribers, 417 gained but lost 65. Where I lost a bunch of subscribers were the few times I went negative on Artie. I seem to lose a half dozen to a dozen players every time I talk about Artie and go off on stuff like that. Fair play. Artie players don't want to listen to people bash them all the time. I try not to do the negative stuff too much. But it really goes back to what I'm trying to do here with this channel is to be, I'm going to call it a more adult channel. It's not exactly what I mean, but you're not going to see a bunch of memes. Occasionally you see stuff like that, but you're not going to see any I'm going to call it the kid stuff, I guess, without really trying to insult any of those guys. There's a lot of great YouTubers, a lot of guys doing really well, obviously better than me, and they provide that kind of content, and that's what the younger crowd wants. But I'm trying to bring this as a more mature, level-headed idea with the YouTube here, and with the idea of taking a game that's pretty darn fun and applying a little more stringent criteria to learning how to play it, as far as being realistic with what you're doing in the game, looking at SA, trying to figure out how to break down the game and do better in it. So hopefully that is what I am providing to everybody out there. Like I said, we're going to work on some map stuff. I'm going to do more reviews along the way as well of tanks, so I'll add to that library as we go. And of course I'll do any of the replay analysis that anybody wants me to do, as always. So that is basically the year in review. It's been good, so thanks for your support, and I do appreciate it. All right, for my slightly negative, my wah section. Maybe I should have a wah section in every coffee talk. So I sat down this morning, I started playing. I was going to grind out and I'll probably end up playing again later today, but so let's be realistic. This isn't driving me away from the game, but it's just the minor irritation of how it goes. Sit down, start playing, and I got this tank, the new, whatever this thing is, the MX something or other, M4 blah 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 51, there you go. And it's supposed to have pretty good armor, right? It's the new armored French tank. And I get in it, I get absolutely shredded by high pen TDs on corridor maps and people dabbing too. So the armor simply does not matter. Now I'm not saying Artie should be the primary thing on tanks, but right now it's about a 10-to-1. For every 10 games where your armor doesn't matter because of high pen TDs on corridor maps and the number 2 for the rest of the tanks out there, for every 10 of those, you get one where you actually are able to use the armor in some significant way. And I think that balance is pretty far off. So they have a serious balancing issue with gold, their corridor maps, and the high pen TD thing that's going on, and add into the massive alpha. Never mind Artie, which I'm going to leave alone for now. We'll talk about him in a minute. The other one was that really got my goat is we get into El Haluf, I believe it is, and we've got a 357. I'm in this thing, tier 9, so I'm one of the 5. We have a T57, 48% player, and he drives down into the valley. And so it's one of those things, had I played better, maybe we win. Had somebody else played better, maybe we win. But right off the bat, we're crippled because one of our top 3, the heavy, takes his heavy and goes down into the valley and does like 1,200 damage and just sort of derps around. Now you can't fix that other than to try to help guys get better. And I realize people got to start somewhere, and some people are just not bright, and you're never going to fix all the stupid out there. But you add that on top of the first thing I talked about, so I'm already a little bit bummed by the balance issues that the game has that the developers don't seem to be paying attention to. All right, this is kind of getting to my point, and has been alluded to in several of the sections before this. They're not paying attention to that, but they're making pretty maps. Then you add on top of that the irritation of the bad player, which is not their fault, but he needs to be taken into account when you're planning your game. You're always going to have that guy, but when his bad decisions make such an important impact on a match because of your baseline issues, that becomes a bigger problem, and you notice it more. And at the end of the third game, we get to the point where we're getting rolled on, and our Artie drives off a cliff and suicides. which is the same thing as the bad player. It's going to happen. Wargaming can't control that necessarily, other than to penalize people. Let me sidetrack on that. Don't suicide because you lose experience. I mean, it's the dumbest thing ever. Just try to get another shot in on people. Anyway, people are going to do it. But those little things, which would always be in the game in the background, which would be minor irritants, become major irritants because your baseline mechanics and balance is so off. And it starts to grow on itself. And then you get the whole forum rage about bad players and people suiciding and hating Artie and all these other things. But really, what they're really irritated with is the baseline mechanics are getting out of whack. And you're not addressing them. They're not addressing them. They're making new pretty maps. They're rearranging deck chairs by changing around Soviet vehicles. They're telling us how they want things to be, when in reality that's not how they are. You know, the developers coming out and saying, well, my intention was this. Well, okay, dude, your intention's fine, but the way the game's played and how it's affecting the player base, that's your intention doesn't matter, because that's not what's happening. So anyway, wow. There you go, the wow section. So speaking of losing customers, losing subscribers, I probably just lost a few more with the wow section. That's fine. This is all casual. We're having a good time. Leave your comments down below on how you think about it. I'm going to go open these two presents over here. That looks good. And I am out of coffee, guys. That is it for Coffee Talk for this week. Have a great New Year's. If you do partake, be careful, please. Call an Uber, stay home, don't drive, all right? It's just not a good idea. Never goes well. You might get away with it a couple times, but eventually you're not going to. And I have every good wish for you on the New Year's. We will see you.